Good evening. Calling to order the Orleans Parish School Board business meeting for February 11th, 2020. The time now is 5:37 p.m. May I have a roll call?
Mr. Ashley,
Present.
Mr. Brown,
Here.
Miss Ellison,
Here.
Mr. Cleven, Mr. Koppel,
Present.
Mr. Marshall,
Present.
Miss Neil Usden,
Here.
also present Dr. Henderson Lewis Jr., Superintendent, and Sharonda Williams, Board Counsel. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have interpretation services available for today's meeting.
Thank you. Hola, buenas tardes. Me llamo Amelia, soy la intérprete al español. Si alguien necesita servicios de interpretación al español, solo levante la mano y me avisa y lo ayudamos. Gracias.
Xin chào toàn thể quý vị, tôi tên là Việt, tôi là thông dịch viên. Nếu quý vị cần giúp đỡ xin cho tôi biết, tôi sẽ đến giúp quý vị. Xin cảm ơn. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 1.3 adoption, or excuse me, 1.2 Pledge of Allegiance. I need to do the pledge. And we are going to be, the pledge is actually going to be led by students of Ben Franklin. I think we have Julia, Kennedy, and Lauren here. Come on. All right.
Can everyone join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. 1.3 now, adoption of the agenda. Do we have any additions, deletions, or modifications?
Couple of modifications,
Yes.
Mr. Ashley. Item 2.1 will be the adoption of the board business meeting minutes, but also earlier the committee of the whole deferred the adoption of the minutes from the various committee meetings from the prior month. So those meeting minutes will be an item for consideration by the board under 2.1. And then on 4.6, note on the agenda that there's a typo. It says Budget Amendment Resolution 05-20, authorizing the First Amendment to the General Fund Operating Budget of Revenues and Expenditures for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019. The agenda says and ending June 20th, 2020, but it should read June 30th, 2020.
All right, can I get a motion
So
accepting the modifications?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda has been adopted as modified. 2.1, adoption of the minutes.
First, we'll do the adoption of the committee meeting
Got it.
minutes from the prior months, and those include all of the committee meeting minutes from last month, so from January 14th, 2020, for the Accountability Policy, Budget and Finance, Property, and Legal and Legislative Committees.
I'll receive a motion.
Move to adopt the minutes and waive the reading.
I have a motion.
Second.
There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes.
And now we will consider adoption of the board meeting minutes from the January meeting. Note, the committee meeting minutes were deferred at the earlier committee of the whole because there was a discussion regarding item 4.6 in the board meeting minutes. There was, Ms. Houston requested that the matter be, those minutes be deferred because 4.6 included a vote that she wanted the board to look at amending those minutes. But in subsequent conversation, we've discussed the fact that that item would have to actually be reconsidered by the board, so there's no way to amend the board meeting minutes in that fashion. And I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to say more on that, Ms.
Thank you
Houston.
for giving me that guidance. I appreciate it.
And so the minutes are, as presented, up for the board's consideration.
Understood. Can I get a motion?
Move for adoption of minutes as printed and waive the reading.
Second.
I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes have been adopted as printed. 3, superintendent's agenda. I will yield to our superintendent.
Thank you, Board President Ashley. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This month, I'm happy to share in my report highlights from across our school district. As superintendent, I'm proud of the talent, hard work, and dedication of all of our students. Today, we get to celebrate the achievement of some of our exceptional NOLA Public School students and schools. First, I'd like to call up Kathy Tony Chase to recognize an extraordinary student whose research won a top prize in a prestigious national competition. Following Ms. Chase will be Mr. Euless Collins to recognize the athletic accomplishment of our district. Kathy?
Good evening, Superintendent Dr. Lewis, President Ethan Ashley, Vice President Woody Koppel, board members, parents, families, and community. It is my esteemed pleasure to honor an exceptional young lady, Lauren Ijaga. Lauren is currently a 9th grade student at Benjamin Franklin High School. Lauren studied the impact of ultraviolet radiation on green plants and is among 5 winners of the Broadcom Masters Middle School STEM competition, a prestigious national contest. The journey began when Lauren Ijaga, 14 years of age, came up with the idea and qualified for the national competition while she was a student in the 8th grade at Lake Forest Charter School, a 2013 National Blue Ribbon School and one of New Orleans' A-rated elementary schools. Her project was titled Ozone Depletion, How It Affects Us, focused on how green plants are being exposed to increased levels of UV radiation as they use sunlight to make food during photosynthesis. Lauren Ijaga received the $10,000 STEM Talent Award Prize, one of the top 5 awards given as part of the overall competition. Please join the Orleans Parish School Board and NOLA Public Schools as we proudly salute this rising star, Lauren Ijaga.
Good evening, everyone. Board President, Board Vice President, Superintendent, and all board members and audience. I am Mardell Simmons Early, the founding CEO of Lake Forest Charter School. We not only want to recognize Lauren Ijaga and her mother, but I must recognize this young woman who started our journey on science projects many, many years ago at Lake Forest, Miss Marla Watts. Miss Watts is the original person who organized our science fair at Lake Forest, along with allowing our students to compete regional. We have won regional every year for the last 10 years, along with winning the state championship. However, this is our first national championship. In fact, Ms. Watts just left Tulane University with 2 busloads of our students who are competing regional as we speak. And so I'm very proud of this young woman and the many, many hours that she gives to our children and working with them and making sure that they work at the highest level. Thank you to Ms. Watts and to Lauren's mother, who is a wonderful parent.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Lewis, and community members. I'm excited to have good news to share with you regarding the state level accomplishments of our schools relative to athletics. I'd also like to mention that not only are these schools exceptional at athletics, these schools also have great academic programs as well. The first recognition will be for Ben Franklin High School. Ben Franklin representatives, please come forward to take a photo with board members and Dr. Lewis. NOLA Public Schools and the Orleans Parish School Board proudly recognizes Ben Franklin High School for their academic achievement as the 2019 LHSAA State Runner-Ups in the Louisiana High School Athletic Association Division II Volleyball Championships. OPSB congratulates Dr. Patrick Whittam, Principal, Ms. Krista Haley, Athletic Director, Jody Polizano, Head Coach, and Captains Julia Garrison and Kennedy George. The second recognition will be Warren Easton High School. Warren Easton High School representatives, please come forward. NOLA Public Schools and Orleans Parish School Board. Proudly recognizes Warren Easton High School for their achievement as the 2019 LHSAA State Runner-Ups in Football Class 4A. OPSB congratulates Mr. Mervyn Jackson, Ms. Lauren LaDuff, Mr. McKenna, Jerry Phillips, head coach, and their captains, Cedric Van Pratt and Ashad Clayton. The third recognition will be Etna Carr High School. Etna Carr representatives, please come forward. NOLA Public Schools and the Orleans Parish School Board proudly recognize Etna Carr High School for their fourth consecutive state title in the LHSAA Class 4A Football Championships. OPSB congratulates Mr. Chauncey Nash, head of school, Taurus Howard, athletic director, head coach Bryce Brown, and captains. Overall, Carr has won 6 state championships in football, with this being their 4th consecutive victory in a row. This concludes athletic recognitions.
Let's give all of our students another round of applause for all of their accomplishments. Next, at NOLA Public Schools and in schools across the district, we are celebrating Black History Month. Black History Month is an opportunity to appreciate the many contributions of African Americans to the country and here in the great city of New Orleans. Our theme for this year is honoring the past, preserving the present, and chartering the future. At this time, Justin McCorkle and Don LaDuff will recognize two dedicated members of our community in observance of Black History Month. Mr. McCorkle.
Good evening. Good evening, board members, Superintendent Lewis, and community members. Tonight, in observance of Black History Month, we have the honor of recognizing two outstanding individuals who have left an indelible mark on the students and families of Orleans Parish. As Dr. Lewis mentioned, our theme for this year is honoring the past, preserving the present, and charting the future. Our first honoree, Ken Carter, who grew up in the Callio Public Housing Development, was a graduate of Xavier Prep and made history as one of the first 4 African Americans to integrate Loyola University's undergraduate program in 1962. Carter received a law degree from Loyola and went on to become one of the city's first 2 elected Black assessors. His collegiate experience became a representation of his tenacity and resilience. Although he earned a basketball scholarship to Loyola University, he left the school when told he'd never play because other colleges refused to suit up against a Black player. The first-hand experience with the lingering, stubborn effects on Jim Crowism in Louisiana greatly shaped his future. Carter was elected in 1985 to the powerful post of tax assessor for the 1st Municipal District. Though small, that district contains the central business district and thus much of the city's most valuable real estate. Carter held the 1st district post from 1985 to 1994. He steadily pushed hard for greater cooperation between New Orleans' mostly white business elite and its mostly Black political class and population, on the theory that more African American entrepreneurship would benefit the city at large. Carter also was the first African American to serve as president of the Louisiana Trial Lawyers Association. Carter helped found the Black Organization for Leadership Development, or commonly known as BOLD. He was deeply involved in the multi-state tobacco litigation, which resulted in huge windfalls for state governments, as well as for the lawyers who championed the lawsuits. In addition to his other roles, Carter at various times served as president of the Ferret Street Development Corporation, chair of the city's Alcoholic and Beverage Control Board, and an officer at the Dry Apes YMCA. He also had multiple prominent business ventures, and he became a prominent member of the Excellence in Education movement, which backed a slate of reform candidates for the Orleans Parish School Board. An active community volunteer and supporter of education, youth, mentorship, and community development, and in the words of former U.S. Senator Mary Landrieu, and I quote, "Ken Carter was a trailblazer in our city and state. He opened doors of opportunity for thousands of students and political activists with his passion and commitment to justice and fairness. Though we lost Ken Carter in August of 2018, the legacy of his commitment to community lives on." Here to receive the award for tonight is his daughter, surrounded by family, Senator Karen Carter Peterson. Ken Carter.
Good evening, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, Superintendent. I certainly want to stand here. Eileen, come on up. I'm joined here by my mother, Gwen Carter, along with my sister, Eileen Carter. I have my father's youngest brother, Nathan Carter Sr., Shemin and Tori Saloy are also joined here. That's his niece and nephew-in-law. But we want to just say that we're quite honored. It was such a shock, Mr. President, to receive a call from you and the board to honor my father. He's, been deceased now for over a year. And just a few reflections. Certainly, thank you for the information that was shared just now. Toni Morrison once wrote that the function of freedom is to free someone else. And my father lived his life trying to free others, and particularly free and open their minds to opportunities, and particularly educational opportunities, because he instilled in us, while he was a first generation along with some of his siblings, college graduates, he instilled in me and my sister the importance of education and what kind of doors that it could open. My mother was a full partner in that effort. They spent their time, they spent their money putting children that were not biologically related to them routinely through college and through law school. But they didn't just support them financially, they supported them in mentorship and continued to support them in their careers. And that's evidenced by how many times they come back and they say thank you. I wear this bracelet since the day he passed and the funeral. It says, "Pay it forward." My sister Eileen got these made. That was one of his slogans and mottos, is never give up. I've worn it since the day of his funeral, and I find myself lots of times in stressful times making sure I remember this and rub it to have that channel, Ken Carter channel, through the work that I do. But it certainly has been a blessing. We know that God doesn't bestow that kind of blessing on every family. But we realize and recognize that to whom much is given, much is required and expected. And so we as a family intend to continue that legacy, and you should know, board members, that you have partners in the entire Carter family to continue to do the work of educating the young people of Orleans Parish and beyond. My husband is not here, but he certainly has been a partner with you all. He's working now in that regard with the New Orleans Career Center, and so he couldn't make it, nor could my pastor. But he, of course, works with you in that regard and will continue to do so. Once again, on behalf of the entire Carter family, we want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Lewis, and the community at large. Dr. Joseph Bowie, affectionately known to many in the community as Doc Bowie, is a native of New Orleans, born at Big Charity, educated in public schools, and also reared in the Callio Public Housing Development. Dr. Bowie graduated from Booker T. Washington High School, received a bachelor's degree from Southern University at New Orleans, a master's as social work from Tulane University, and earned his PhD from Clark Atlanta University. He is a retired faculty member and administrator of his alma mater, SUNO. Dr. Bowie was determined to beat the odds for himself and his family while also making a difference for the people of his community. After a successful career in education, administration, and community service, he asked the voters of House District 97 to allow him the opportunity to serve them in the Louisiana State Legislature, and they said yes. During his first term, Representative Bowie was elected chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, and served on the House Ways and Means, Education, and Municipal Committees. Additionally, in his role as state representative, he authored legislation and fought for criminal justice reform, equal pay for women, equity in college admissions standards, and justice and equality for our LGBTQ citizens. Dr. Bowie was a strong champion of the effort to return our public schools to the duly elected Orleans Parish School Board. He has served as a floor leader for Governor John Bell Edwards and has built relationships across party lines that are essential to the passage of bipartisan legislation. Just when you think Dr. Bowie has achieved every milestone possible, he continues to aim higher. In 2019, Dr. Bowie was elected to represent the citizens of the State Senate, District 3, wrapping up his second term as state representative for District 97. He has always been there, providing evidence-based solutions and serving as a community problem solver. As he has said many times before, if not now, when? And if not us, who? It is because of his commitment to the community that NOLA Public Schools and the Orleans Parish School Board proudly recognize State Senator Dr. Joe Bowie for his contributions to the students and families of Orleans Parish. Dr. Bowie.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members, Superintendent Lewis. There must be something about the Calliope, right? I happen to have known Ken Carter and his wife, Gwen, and we grew up together in the Calliope. But indeed, it is a privilege and honor for me to receive this award, and actually I'm quite surprised, but pleased. And obviously, when you offer yourself for service, you really don't expect accolades. You don't do it because of awards. You do it because it's the right thing to do. And like myself and like Ken, you know, we stood on the shoulders of giants. That's a cliche here, but it is true. And so all we try to do is to do what others have done for us, and that is to give back. So it is indeed a privilege and honor for me to receive the award, and I thank you all very much.
This concludes our recognitions for Black History Month 2020. If we can give our honorees another round of applause, please.
Congratulations once again. At NOLA Public Schools, we know that there's great potential in the collective power of the New Orleans community support of our schools citywide. And that's why we welcome the opportunity to work with the Greater New Orleans Foundation to review where more support and coordination is needed to help our schools increase their impact now and in the years to come. At this time, I'm going to ask Dina Hasiolis to come up to introduce our next presenter from the Greater New Orleans Foundation. Dina?
Good evening. I will just make this a brief introduction. Mr. Andy Copeland, who's the CEO of the Greater New Orleans Foundation, tonight will walk you through the report's summary findings. And I will just say personally, I've been able to be a part of the project since we launched it almost last winter, last December, and have been encouraged by the conversation and the partnership and the engagement from multiple community partners, school leaders, and advocates and parents, and are excited to share this with you all tonight and continue the work moving forward. So, Mr. Copeland?
All right, thank you, Dina. Good evening, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, Superintendent, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be back before you, and I just have to say that more people should come to these board meetings. It'll lift your heart up. If you want to know what's going on good in our community, I think we just saw a lot of evidence of it. So thank you for sharing that and celebrating those students and those leaders of our community. Last year, I guess it was actually December, I'm going too fast here, December of 2018, I came and visited you all and shared with you that we were undertaking some work in partnership with NOLA Public Schools and some other partners of ours, the Baptist Community Ministries Foundation here in town, the GPOA Foundation in town, Laureus Sports for Good Foundation, and the Greater New Orleans Foundation, coming together to see if there are things that we can do to support the success of our students and our schools in New Orleans, and particularly through the nonprofit sector that we work with so closely. So today we're here to report the findings of that work and talk about next steps that we and Superintendent Lewis and the team have been engaged in already. Just at the outset, we believe at the foundation, as you all do here at the school board, that public schools are the backbone of a strong community and the most important public service that we can offer to ensure a thriving community for all. We also know that we've made real progress in recent years, but there's a long way to go. But we believe in the ability for our system of schools to provide a high-quality seat to every student and are your partners in that work. We also believe that philanthropy and community partners can partner with the school board to promote educational equity and improve the educational outcomes of our young people and really raise achievement for all students while erasing the ways that academic outcomes differ by race, by ethnicity, by income, by disability, and by native language. So we undertook a study. We hired a firm called Square Button Consulting, local firm, who partnered with Educational Research Strategies and the Spears Group to conduct analysis from our community. What did our parents say their great needs were? What did our teachers say? What did our school leaders say? And looked at data as well. What we were trying to do is identify the highest priority needs facing New Orleans students and identify what we were able to support them with in terms of the available supply of services to meet those needs. We also wanted to look at what interventions citywide actors, whether the school board and the public school system or other nonprofits, could play in supporting direct services to students. What are the interventions we needed? Who should play these roles? And then how can we make progress along in our partnership together, and how can we assess whether we're actually making the process, measuring it to see if there's improvement along the way. So we recently released the findings. We've shared these with Superintendent Lewis and his team over the past couple months as we've worked to prepare for this presentation. And some of the things we found were not surprising probably to you all who are in the trenches, but were quite clear when the surveys indicated that parents' #1 issue was they believe there's a high demand for trauma counseling and other mental health services. And of course, so too did teachers and school leaders. They also identified that students with special needs require additional services. Students who are learning English also require more support. We were surprised that those were the highest priority items. It wasn't the after-school programs. It wasn't the enrichment programs. Not that those aren't important. Those were all important, but these were the ones that were the blinking red lights where we have the biggest gaps, according to the survey work that our team did. We also thought it was important, and it was recognized, that teacher diversity and cultural competency and professional development for those teachers would be critical for us to meet the challenges that we face together. And then we believe that expanding opportunity for New Orleans students requires citywide partnerships. We also found that, not surprisingly, the public school system, NOLA PS, is one of several citywide actors with a role to play in expanding these opportunities. But we know that in a system of decentralized schools, there are some challenges to implementing that. And so we've got to recognize the context that you all face as a board in trying to address these needs while also maintaining the choice and autonomy and accountability that our system of schools has. Of course, it's important for school leaders to rigorously prioritize their demands on educator time, and so we're trying to make sure that we've prioritized the needs that were most identified. And lastly, we need to make sure that in all of our work, we work hard to dismantle the systemic and racially inequitable structures that contribute significantly to present conditions. The frame of this report notes that there's an educational debt that we owe our students because of the lingering impact of slavery, Jim Crow, racism that is maintained today, but has obviously been maintained in our community for generations. And so that's something that we put front and center in this report that's really important for us to acknowledge as we work to address the challenges we face. Before I get into the recommendations, I'm going to highlight a few things from the report that is at your desks, and I think there's some additional copies for the audience outside if you're looking for those. But, you know, we know it's hard for children to focus in class when they're grieving, frightened, stressed, learning a new language and culture, or working with a disability. And so we believe that if our city is to make significant academic improvement, schools need additional resources and support and partners to help address those issues that they face. Also from the report, you know, so as I said, parents felt the #1 priority for service providers was grief and trauma counseling. And it's important to note again that in the case of special ed, when we talk about these racial inequities, there's a history of increased misdiagnosis and other racial bias. So that's important to put forward as we make this report. We also think that it's important to note that the cultural competency of our teachers is really important. And so in terms of the professional development that our teachers are getting at their schools, lifting up that issue as a challenge for our students to have culturally competent teachers is vitally important as well. Additionally, with students who are newly arrived to this country, we got increased numbers of students in the greater New Orleans region and you all in your public schools who are English language learners, and that's continuing to put a stress on educators, but also demands for educational equity require that we address those challenges as well. So in terms of the recommendations, again, we recommend that you all consider assessing students' experience of the teaching culture at their school through a survey and include that measure of student satisfaction in part of the annual school quality profiles. Building educators' cultural competence, making it more valuable for teachers to join the field and stay in the classroom. Obviously, you all are working very hard on that, and I've heard we didn't spend a lot of time on teacher retention, teacher pay issues, but of course, those came up in every conversation we had. Help community-based organizations that offer social, emotional, and academic programming serve more children. So in most of these cases, whether it's trauma-informed learning, mental health services, services with students with special needs, or English language learners, the nonprofit sector and the partners that you all have provide, in the best case, less than half of the needs that were identified by the student demands that are present. So there's a significant need for increased services in all of these areas. We also recommend investing in having more therapists and counselors in schools that can provide trauma-informed care, help educators better teach students that are ELL learners, creating a newcomer center for English language learners. And this would be, again, we spoke about different roles that nonprofit partners could play. This is clearly one where a centralized effort on behalf of the school board may make sense in the ways that you have done that in similar areas by providing additional opportunities for newcomer support. Again, encouraging or enabling English language learners to participate in academic enrichment programs and special ed students as well. Lots of times because of language difficulties or transportation difficulties, ELL learners and special ed students are not able to participate in the enrichment activities that other students are able to take advantage of. In terms of next steps, again, we will be your partners here, engaging in continued dialogue about how the nonprofit sector can be a partner to schools in the district to implement these recommendations. In fact, at the Greater New Orleans Foundation, we have updated our education, our youth, and our health grant-making guidelines to prioritize trauma-informed care and culturally relevant mental health services. And so we've given new grants in the area of education, in youth to the Youth Alliance, and education to the Women in Ethnic Studies, school partnerships that they do, in mental health for advocacy at the state level for increased mental health services in our region, because we believe those are critical ways that we can use our philanthropic resources to help advance your work. And then we stand ready to support the district, which through our conversations with Dr. Lewis and Dina has already taken a number of steps to implement and begin implementing recommendations for improvement. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Dina to talk a little bit about the progress that you all have made at the district level to make these recommendations come to life. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just spend a little bit of time under the 4 priority areas, as the report identifies, as Andy said. 4 key areas arose for attention and partnership and increased resources and focus across the city and among our schools. One being around the social and emotional needs of our students. The second, ensuring that we have high quality teachers through a variety of ways. Third being how do we better serve students with disabilities, and also our English language learners. So I'm excited that, having been a part of this work over the past year, these areas are ones that we as educators, as Andy say, working with our schools every day, are things that we knew were challenges, right? But it's exciting to have a renewed focus from our philanthropic partners, and also alignment among us and our nonprofit sector to say these are priorities for us to work on, because there's areas where we've started to work over the past year, and also most recently through the System-Wide Needs Program. So just to highlight a few of those efforts so that we're aware, we know there's more work to be done and more partnerships to be built, and that's why we're excited for the report to have launched and for us to have some broader conversations in these areas. But the first being, as you all are aware, NOLA PS has been partnering with community partners in terms of the New Orleans Health Department and Tulane University on building the district's capacity and our schools around becoming trauma-informed schools, to ensure that all of their policies and procedures and staff are trained on that effort. We have 2 staff members who've been working this year with that collaborative on that work, and a handful of schools, and we're continuing to hopefully spread that work over the district over time. Additionally, through the System-Wide Needs Fund, which you all approved last month, we prioritized the idea of providing professional development training to a school-based staff member to get that type of training around what it means to be a trauma-informed school, how to address students' crisis needs related to mental health, and then how to bring those practices back to their schools. And through that, we hope through the request for proposals that we'll find an organization, ideally, that can help us do that work through partnership to support our schools. In terms of the high quality teachers, 2 big efforts were funded through the System-Wide Needs Program, one around mentor training. The report calls out, as you read into it, the need to ensure that new teachers have support, but also that not all of our schools have clear development pathways for teachers, career development pathways to follow. So the mentor training program that we are supporting and funding through the System-Wide Needs Program does both of those things by creating a pathway for teachers to gain more leadership, but also to support our new teachers in their roles. Secondly, we have created through the System-Wide Needs Fund the priority around ensuring that all of our new teacher training programs prove to us, in order to get the funding, that they are including cultural competence in their training programs for their new teachers, and also trauma-informed care. 2 very much driven by the reports and our listening through partners over the past year through this project. In terms of students with disabilities, it's important to note that we have, through the leadership of the board and also our administration and partners throughout, have started to build the creation of specialized programs for students with special needs. As you dig into the report, a lot of what is asked is to ensure that there's high quality specialized programming for some of our highest need students. And those are efforts we started to take. We want to expand, as we've talked about, but the pilot is underway, and we hope that that can serve those families seeking those services better in the future. And also, just to know, around improving overall quality of special education services, we have embedded staff within the school support team who are an on-call technical assistant and advice giver to schools on how they can improve their special education service delivery. And as you all know, we've expanded the Child Find services citywide through the leadership of Dr. Guidry. That allows us to ensure that we identify students with significant needs sooner rather than later in their educational career. And lastly, English language learners. And last year we prioritized engaging with some of our community partners on how can we approach this, how best can we serve English language learners beyond just the academic program, but what our schools need to be and look like to serve them better. And through those conversations, we launched the English language learner working group that has a specific scope and sequence that we're working through to have schools engage in around data, around how do you work with families, how does your school need to be welcoming, and also what additional programming should be at the school level related to English language learners. But we're excited in this area to even expand our strategies and efforts in line with potentially the recommendations in the report to improve our impact with those students in particular. So those are just a few of the current highlights that align with the report, and we hope that through further conversation, especially with our philanthropic partners and nonprofit partners, we can make more headway in these areas. And I think we'll take any questions you all may have.
So I just have a quick question about the social and emotional needs of students. Has there been any talks about being proactive on our end in terms of advocating to ensure when our students aren't in the care of our schools, meaning from 4 p.m. to 8 a.m., to ensure that they're not necessarily going through the trauma that would then, our teachers then have to respond to? Like, is there things that we need to do to advocate at the city level or the state level to ensure that we're being proactive about that? And has there also been, from the work that you all have done, have you all also talked about us advocating for additional resources and supports to ensure that our schools have funding to do some of the work around implementing the best practices for our students in this regard?
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I think one of the things that we've learned in philanthropy, obviously, is that philanthropy can make a difference in terms of identifying challenges, coming up with pilot programs, innovations, research. But in terms of having the significant effect we want to have in erasing the problem, we're going to also have to get public resources and other private resources to bear. And so that's why one of the things we want to do is give grants, but also do some advocacy. So one of our grants was to the Louisiana Mental Health Coalition, advocating particularly to increase the level of mental health services that are available statewide, but in particularly in the communities where these challenges are the most significant. In the city of New Orleans and the greater New Orleans region, we've got a lot of challenges because of the effects of poverty and violence and other challenges in our community, where our students are on the front lines in so many ways and need that extra support. So advocacy is one of the things that we're also doing. And of course, obviously lots of these programs that are provided by nonprofit partners take place in that 4 to 8 p.m. kind of timetable that you're describing, or 4 to midnight.
Just an additional question, President. Relative to the trauma counseling and mental health services, let me read. It says that we have 29 community-based organizations that offer mental and behavioral health services, social emotional learning services, or conflict resolution and violence prevention services, but only 7 of these organizations offer counseling. It also says that they can currently reach around 4,600 students each month. Roughly one third are free of cost, but the rest provide financial assistance. So they're capable. What I'm reading here is that they're capable of providing additional services, but not quite able to, if I'm reading that correctly. And it said a little over half partner with at least one school. 7 additional organizations provide counseling. They can reach around 1,300 students. Just over half are free, and so on. So there seems to be some obstacles there, right, from reaching their capacity, because there are quite a few organizations, but not all of them, or not nearly all of them, are reaching students. So I'm just wondering how we can increase the capacity of these organizations to reach out to our students, number one, and to find out, you know, how many of our schools are interested in receiving those services, and how much, because those services are badly needed. I know that's what you're saying to us. I'm just wondering how we can improve the quantity and quality of service.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, and I think that really gets to the heart of it. We have a number of excellent organizations that are working to support our teachers, to support our English language learners, our students with disabilities, and to help provide mental health services. And in every case, those excellent organizations lack the resources to meet the collective needs that we face in our community. And I think highlighting, just as you did, the gap was part of what we were trying to do. This wasn't, you know, this is not every school's got these services and they've got sufficient amounts. The answer is very few of them have sufficient services, and so that means that we've got to, you know, really invest more money in supporting organizations that do these things. There's some things that are probably less expensive to do, which is to make sure that we've got in our professional development program for teachers the cultural competency work, some of the trauma-informed care work as part of their own professional development. But when it comes to providing extra services to the students themselves, you actually just need more counselors, and we need more nonprofits that do that work. Lots of those nonprofits get money from their donors, and we've got a strong base of donors in our region who support this, but a lot of them also get government contracts to provide services, and that's one of the reasons why we've got to continue to advocate for those additional funds. And so I think the highlight is that we've got some good organizations doing great work, but the needs are much in excess of the available supply.
I'd just like to encourage the superintendent's staff to continue working to see how we can increase significantly the services that we're providing to students who badly need it. I think we can improve the quality, you know, of the services that we're providing to them, the quantity of services that we're providing, and I think that will also improve some other things, you know, our student attendance, student graduation rates, and so on and so forth. So I just hope that we can continue to look at ways in which we can increase services to our students.
And if I could respond to that, I think you're absolutely right. We looked at this with the goal of helping increase student achievement and attainment. And some of the barriers that were identified by the students, the parents, the teachers that we spoke with were these areas, and they agreed. If our students were feeling you know, more supported emotionally in their schools, they could probably achieve greater academic outcomes. If they were better supported as English language learners or students with disabilities, the same is true. And we're taking this message not just to you all, but to our partners in the philanthropic world, our donors, our fund holders, to make sure that they understand that these are the urgent needs that we face in Orleans Parish in terms of the needs of our students. And so before I forget, I wanted to recognize, I did not mention that another one of our philanthropic partners for this report was the Kellogg Foundation, and they were a significant investor in it. I neglected to note them in my first introduction, so thanks as well to the Kellogg Foundation. I want to introduce Roy Williams, who's our program officer. Roy is our program officer, and he has worked very closely with your team here at the district over the last year on this study.
Mr. Marshall.
I don't know where to begin. One of the problems, we have a plethora of organizations out there that want to serve the kids, but they don't have a space or time to do the work that they have resources to do because the schools don't have time for it. The school day is jam-packed with academic programming to get the kids to pass the test. And we don't have the time to bring in all of the additional resources and things to work with these kids during that narrow window they have. I mean, I talk to a lot of agencies that want to know, how can I get to the students? How can I get to the students? How can I get to the students? And administrators are constantly saying, we don't have time for that. So, I mean, there is a problem that we are not addressing, okay? I mean, the list of things we need schools to do gets longer and longer, but yet we haven't added 1 minute to the school day in over 80 years. There are issues, there are problems that we just are not addressing. I mean, Roy, you know, where do we get started? Thank you.
Can I add one food for thought to that? I think that many, to that point, I think many school leaders, also given the work we did around system-wide needs, this is an area they know they want and need help in. And I think there's an opportunity now with this. And also with the unified system, more and more different entities are coming to us to try to partner with schools in a more coordinated fashion. And I think this presents, we're hoping in this opportunity, Dr. Kelly Jordan, who's on the school support improvement team, has been sitting with the Behavioral Health Council, which is a citywide effort around addressing mental health needs, around how do we coordinate efforts to better support our schools, but also knowing that it's a broader concern, to your point, Mr. Brown, that not everything can be addressed in the schoolhouse. But just to say that I think we have many schools that want to partner, and now we have to figure out how to do it. The idea of the school day and how to fit everything in is always a challenge, but I'm excited about the opportunity here, especially given now that we know this is a need that's been voiced directly from our schools most recently. How do we bring the partners to the table to figure out the right support needed for those students in their schools?
Thank you for your efforts. Continue.
Thank you for your partnership. Pleasure to be here.
Andy, again, I'd like to thank you for, and the Greater New Orleans Foundation for the work and the partnership, also the Kellogg Foundation for also being a major part of this process to make sure that, one, we understand, even as we heard today, where more coordination is needed to provide the supports for our students and for our families. And at the end of the day, as we talk to schools, many of them, as Dina mentioned, wanted support, and then on the other side, you had all these organizations who actually provide these supports. And what we found as we went through the study, some schools knew about certain things, some did not, and this is another opportunity for us to have a better layer of coordination to be able to solve the problems that have been identified in the top list that we've shared this evening that the district is already partnering and working on to solve. So again, thank you for your partnership and your leadership on this. Thank you so much. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Superintendent. Let's move to action items. I'll yield to Board Counsel.
Action item 4.1. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board approves the committee appointments as recommended by the Board President.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Cleveland. Do I have a
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Ellison. Are there any cards?
None.
Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Noted. That motion passes.
Action item 4.2, new policy EBBB, school and student safety. It's recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board adopts policy EBBB.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion. I have a second. Are there any cards? There's no cards. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. That motion passes.
Action item 4.3, request for independent LEA status, Foundation Prep. It's recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board approves the request from Foundation Preparatory, Inc. to allow Foundation Preparatory to operate as its own local education agency status effective July 1st, 2020.
So moved, waiving the reading of the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion waiving the reading of the resolution in a second. All in favor? Well, are there any cards?
Done.
There are no cards. Can I get a roll call?
This is not a resolution. You just need a, yeah.
Can I get a, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Action item 4.4 is resolution number 04-20, approving the industrial ad valorem tax exemption application number 2019-0282. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board adopts resolution 04-20, approving industrial tax exemption program application number 201908282-ITE, submitted by Iriapac USA LLC because it does meet the criteria established by the Orleans Parish School Board on July 19, 2018, and amended on September 20th, 2018.
Waiving the reading this time.
I have a motion waiving the reading and a second. Are there any cards?
None.
None. Can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Ashley?
Yes.
Mr. Brown? Yes. Ms. Allison? Yes. Mr. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mr. Koppel? Yes. Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Ms. Neal Houston?
Yes. Motion
Motion carries.
Action item 4.5, resolution number 07-20. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board adopts resolution 07-20, denying industrial tax exemption program application number 2019019-ITE, submitted by Iriapac USA LLC because it does not meet the criteria established by the Orleans Parish School Board on July 19, 2018, and amended on September 20th, 2018.
So moved. Waive the reading.
Second.
I have a motion waiving the reading, and I have a second. Are there any cards? No cards. Can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Ashley?
Yes.
Mr. Brown? Yes. Ms. Allison?
Yes.
Mr. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mr. Koppel?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Ms. Neal Houston?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Action item 4.6, budget amendment resolution 05-20. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board adopts resolution 05-20, authorizing the first amendment to the general fund operating budget of revenues and expenditures for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2019 and ending June 30th, 2020.
Second with waiving of the reading.
I have a motion and a second waiving the reading. Are there any cards? No cards. Can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Ashley?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Allison?
Yes.
Mr. Cleveland?
Yes.
Mr. Koppel?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Ms. Neal Houston?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Action item 4.7, budget amendment resolution 06-20. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board adopts resolution 06-20, reallocating $8,500,000 from the new school PK through 8 Kenilworth project to the Biomed District New High School project, also known as New Orleans Charter Science and Math High School, both on FEMA project worksheet 19290.
So moved. Waiving the reading of the resolution.
Second.
I have a motion waiving the reading and a second. We have any cards? No cards. Can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Ashley? Mr. Brown? Yes. Ms. Allison? Yes. Mr. Cleveland? Mr. Koppel?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Ms. Neal Houston?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Action item 4.8, invitation to bid number 20-FAC-0021. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board accepts the bid for Benjamin Franklin roof replacement from Ricars Construction, Inc. in the amount of $452,950, and to authorize the General Counsel to prepare a contract for signatures of the Board President and the contractor.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
No
Are there any cards? None. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. That motion carries.
Action item 4.9, contract amendment for Concordia LLC. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board accepts the bid. No, that's one, give me 1 second. That's not correct. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board approves a contract amendment in the amount of $26,379 with Concordia LLC for additional design services for envelope repair project number 2017-0594-0001 at McMain High School.
Move for approval.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second. Are there any cards? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Any abstentions?
Recuse myself. Thank you.
Recusal. That motion carries.
Action item 4.10, design contract for Rosenwald Wald renovations. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board authorize execution of design contract with Grace Aber Curtis Architects for the renovation of the Rosenwald facility in the amount of $949,607.25.
Move for approval.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Are there any cards?
None.
Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any recusals? Any any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Action item 4.11, Gentilly Terrace facility alteration. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board approve the requested facility alteration submitted by Audubon Charter Schools for Gentilly Terrace Elementary School as required by policy HD.
Move for approval.
Mr. President, I believe that the action that was recommended from committee had an additional statement or recommendation. I don't know if that got to you,
It did not.
or if we have it somewhere, or if I should try to recreate it.
Yeah, I have it. I just was under the impression that I was told that it was a task for the staff not to include it, but it is.
I'm sorry. It was my intent to add it to
Yes.
accept the recommendation as written and add an additional recommendation. I can
Mr.
repeat
Cleveland,
it.
if you just restate, please.
Yeah, I can repeat
Yes,
it. It's
thank you
just
so
it's
much.
just accepting the recommendation here and adding a recommendation that OPSB determine the best path forward to ensure that Audubon Charter Schools has access to school facility preservation program funds for eligible expenses, both for this project and for the future.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify that. Ben, you're saying that if the funds would be available for that preservation funding, to reimburse the school for their expenditure?
If that in whatever form or fashion,
I just
works.
wanted to make that clear.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Tiffany, can you step up to the mic, please?
Thank you, Ms. Delcar. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Delcar.
Good evening. One quick clarification. The school district cannot reimburse a school for projects. I spoke with the CEO of Audubon Charter Schools that we would review her scope of work for eligible expenses, and the district would take on those eligible expenses.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion. Can we get a second?
Second.
So,
You want to clarify the motion again? Board-
so if
I'll accept it as a friendly.
as a friendly amendment, yeah.
And second.
Okay, I'll second. I'll repeat it again. Would you-
Please.
Okay. The existing language remains the same. In addition, it is also recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board determine the best solution for ensuring Audubon Charter Schools has access to school facility preservation funds for eligible expenses for this project and for the future.
So we have a motion to amend. Do I have a second for the amendment?
There is a second.
Second. All in favor of the amended language that Ben proposes? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. Can we now vote on his amended language? Can I get a motion for his amended
So
language?
moved.
I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor, are there any cards?
None.
None. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Is staff clear? Okay.
Action item 4.12, invitation to bid number 20-FAC-0020. It is recommended that the Orleans Parish School Board accepts the bid for chiller replacement at James Johnson Elementary School from ARC Mechanical Contractors, Inc. in the amount of $428,900 and authorizes the general counsel to prepare a contract for signatures of the board president and the contractor.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
And I have a second. Are there any cards? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes.
We're at executive session.
I have a motion and a second for executive session. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. We're in executive session. Calling back to order the Orleans Parish School Board business meeting of Tuesday, February 11th, 2020. The time now is 7:48 p.m. Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Ashley?
Present.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Miss Ellison?
Here.
Mr. Kleben?
Here.
Mr. Koppel?
Present.
Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Miss Neil Houston?
Here.
Also present, Dr. Henderson Lewis Jr., Superintendent, and Sharonda Williams, Board Counsel. We have a quorum.
Awesome. I yield back to Board Counsel.
The Orleans Parish School Board convened an executive session to discuss the character, professional competence, physical, or mental health of a person's school board personnel, and no action will be taken at this time.
Great. Six, motion. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.